Welcome to Money Talks, your intel on the Philippine markets and the economy. Sitting in for Cathy Yang, I'm Pauline Verzosa. In the headlines, political concerns drag the Philippine peso to its lowest at 61.64 on Thursday. Foreign investment pledges rose by 52.3% year-on-year during the first quarter. And the Bureau of Internal Revenue says its gross collections in April exceeded its target for the month, even as it extended the filing of the annual income tax return. The peso slightly rebounds after hitting another record low yesterday, with analysts pointing the finger at the chaos in the Senate. The local unit opens this Friday a tad stronger at 61.63 to the dollar. The peso has weakened by 26 centavos to settle at 61.64 to the dollar. It surpasses the record set on April 29, when the peso closed at 61.567 against the greenback. Japet Tantiangco, research manager at PhilStocks Financial, attributes the weaker peso to hawkish expectations on the Federal Reserve and dented investor confidence following the shooting at the Senate. It is on top of an economy already facing stagflationary risks or a combination of slower growth and higher inflation. Mike Ricafort, chief economist of RCBC, says latest political developments distract lawmakers from passing priority reform measures. Well, foreign investment pledges in the first quarter rose 52% from a year earlier, but it's the lowest in 4 quarters amid geopolitical uncertainties. Preliminary data from the Philippine Statistics Authority shows foreign commitments approved by investment promotion agencies reached 42.64 billion pesos from January to March. It is higher from the revised 27.99 billion in the same quarter last year. Still, the figure is lower than the 105.66 billion recorded last quarter. For University of Asia and the Pacific Associate Professor Sid De Rosa, the sharp rebound from a low base last year reflects improved investor sentiment driven by new tech and future-ready economic zones. However, Ateneo Senior Research Fellow Sir Percival Reyes has warned that the Middle East conflict already caused economic uncertainty that could weigh on sentiment in several sectors. And in other news, the rotating blackouts that hit Luzon and the Visayas this week have exposed deeper weaknesses in the country's power system. That's according to Policy Group Institute for Climate and Sustainable Cities. The group said the May 13 outages showed how a single disruption could quickly trigger a wider supply crisis. It noted that Luzon's available power capacity dropped from nearly 17,000 megawatts to just over 12,000 after key transmission lines and major power plants simultaneously tripped. And among those affected were several LNG facilities connected to the Dasmariñas, Ilijan, and Tayabas-Ilijan transmission lines. Meanwhile, red and yellow alerts remained in effect in both Luzon and the Visayas on Thursday as demand continued to outpace available supply. The National Grid Corp of the Philippines said 17 power plants have been on forced outage since March this year. And in response, the Energy Department and Energy Regulatory Commission ordered NGCP to submit a full incident report as the disruptions put millions of consumers at risk. Energy officials say they are now working to return offline plants to the grid to help ease the threat of more rotating brownouts.
Yung rotational brownout po natin, depende po yan sa oras at kung saan pwedeng mangyari. Tinatarget po natin ay yung mga planta na naka-out ngayon ay makasynchronize po sa grid. Umpisa po ngayong araw na to. At hopefully po bukas ay lahat po sila ay nagbibigay na ng kuryente.
Now, taxpayers have until today, May 15, to file their 2025 annual income tax returns. The Bureau of Internal Revenue says this applies to those who availed of the deadline extension, with corresponding tax payments also due today. This comes as the agency reported 422.38 billion pesos in gross collections for April, surpassing its target by 12.78 billion pesos. From January to April, total gross collections stood at 1.16 trillion pesos, also above target and up nearly 4% from a year ago. right, and joining us this morning is Mon Abrea, Chief Tax Advisor of Asian Consulting Group and known as the Philippines' tax whiz. Good morning, Mon. Welcome back to the program.
Thank you, Pauline. Good morning.
All right, so today is the deadline for taxpayers, but already the BIR beat its April collection target despite the tax extension.
It seems you're cheering for BIR for hitting the target.
No, but what does this say about compliance of taxpayers?
Well, honestly, because we believe that it's much easier now, and you can just do it anywhere, anytime. It's electronic. So beating the deadline is no longer a big issue.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. But the BRR says, like what you mentioned, that digital services helped lift collections. But are taxpayers really feeling the ease of paying their taxes?
Well, maybe not for our MSMEs because we still have several requirements that becomes costly for them, like the books of accounts. I mean, the duplicity of reporting. You've already reported your sales in this return. You have to report it again in this, and there's another schedule. Then when it comes to audit, you need to present again the same set of schedules or books of accounts. So I guess the issue now is no longer collection, but more of fairness and the ease of paying taxes.
All right. Now, today is a deadline, as we mentioned, for those who availed of the extension. What should taxpayers watch out for to avoid penalties?
Well, number one, they have to make sure they reconcile all their receipts and all their returns. You know, sometimes we are in a hurry that we end up, maybe there will be some glitches, more zeros, like some other people claim. So we should be careful about that because the moment we sign it, we are already subject to perjury. You cannot just say, oh, it's a typo error. Because you sign it as that you are saying it's all true and based on your records. So it has to be really based on records.
Okay, so that's one thing that taxpayers must keep in mind. All right, but on April collections topped the BIR's internal target, but we are still below the monthly projection under the 2026 budget assumptions. Should this be a concern?
Yes, especially that we have so many political issues that in a way affects the behavior of taxpayers. You know, when they lose trust or there's lack of trust to your government, and at the same time you feel like the money are not being spent properly, then you also affect the diligence and the compliance of taxpayers, especially that we follow a voluntary tax system.
Now, you have long been pushing for raising the tax-free income threshold to 1 million pesos by 2028. How realistic is that, and how will it exactly help middle-income earners?
Well, for the longest time, the government has relied on the middle class. Given the statistics provided by BIR, 82% of our personal income tax comes from our compensation income earners, while our high-income, high-net-worth individuals only contribute 4%. I think it's high time to correct that, and not just as a form of relief, but as a form of justice. So is it possible? Yes, very much possible, as I mentioned earlier. The issue right now is no longer collection, but fairness. Are we collecting from the right people, given that there's so many unexplained wealth, not only from the government officials or politicians, but also from individuals, professionals who seemingly are showing a lavish lifestyle, but their tax return is zero or no tax return at all. So I guess we need that kind of efficiency in terms of making sure that everyone pays their what is due. Then at the same time, if we lift the bank secrecy, we will be able to collect the unexplained wealth from this flood control, the family. I mean, all these issues or political noises should be red flag for BIR. Whoops. Oh, there's donation. Oops, there is this money flow, and etc. Then BIR should be running after them. But so far, they have filed case against Harry Roque. So it seems like they are missing. Either they don't have the target or they're missing their target.
Well, you also say that raising the tax-free income threshold is a better long-term solution than, let's say, cutting VAT. Why is that better, and how is this approach going to be more targeted and more sustainable?
Number one, suspending any tax, for that matter, whether excise, VAT, or reducing it at this point in time we're in crisis, is not fiscally responsible. Why? As we speak, we have approved 6.7 trillion national budget, and only 4 trillion will be collected by BIR and customs. Not yet collected, will be collected. As you said, they collected around 1 trillion already, but they are supposed to collect until end of the year up to at least 4 trillion. That means we are on a budget deficit. The difference will be loan. That's increase in national debt. So we expect that by end of the year, we will hit a 20 trillion national debt. So spending taxes will mean more debt. And we don't want that because in the end, the ordinary Filipinos will still have to pay for it with interest. Then another thing is it's disproportionately beneficial to the rich because higher income earners mean that they consume more. So any suspension or reduction in VAT, which is a consumption tax, will mean more benefit for those who spend more. While increasing the take-home pay or the income tax exemption to 1 million means empowering the middle class. Meaning they will be able to, this is increasing the purchasing power of the middle class, more consumption, better for the economy.
Well, Mon, you are also proposing the creation of a national revenue authority that would unify the BIR and the Bureau of Customs. But what problems in the current system are you seeing?
Three things. First is the fiscal and political independence. There's no independence. Number one, it's a political body under the Department of Finance. And as a political appointee, as a presidential appointee, you cannot really run after the allies of the president. Like in the flood control, nobody has been charged of tax evasion, even if it's pretty obvious that there's a question in the net worth or salin of the former speaker, the Saldico, and all these people, but none. So you can see that there is really so much political issue there. Then at the same time, the digitalization. We have been talking about digitalization, but it's like a pet project or a classroom project. It's always launched, but it never gets to completion. So I guess if we try to modernize the tax administration, other than the fact that they operate in silo, the BIR and customs, they don't share database. So the smugglers get away with their taxes, while at the same time, they get away from BIR as well, when in fact they should be sharing the data. And I think the most important part of this this modernization is the power of data analytics to really make sure that it is data-driven and AI-powered or tech-powered. Because right now, it's highly manual and it's more of second guessing rather than data-driven that, oops, industry is high risk. This individual is high risk. There's this data, whether it's SALN, income tax return, or purchase of luxury cars or condominiums, that this should be red flags or trigger audit, but that's not exactly what's happening right now.
Well, there are countries that already implement a modern revenue system, including Singapore, Canada, and even the United Kingdom. What are some of the lessons that we can pick up from them?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, I think it's really important that we allow the tax administration to operate independent of the politics and the budget constraint. Because if they're always constrained with resources, then they cannot really collect on behalf of the government. So let them operate independent of all this political and budgetary constraint. Give them as much resources so that they can hire the best of the best, and at the same time can really use or harness the technology to make sure that we will be able to broaden the taxpayer gap. Because right now, out of 118 million Filipinos, only roughly 20 million is registered taxpayer. So what are the rest? Ghosts? Babies? Why are not they registered? And according to the BAR's record, there are roughly less than 100,000 OFWs. But we know that there are more than 10 million OFWs.
Right.
So there is really an issue just on the database alone. And it can only be improved if we fully digitalize it and that we give them as much resources as they need. That is not at the mercy of Congress or politicized, especially when they have to do their audit and investigation. I honestly believe just auditing unexplained wealth, we can collect as much as 1 trillion pesos.
Oh, there you go. All right, well, shifting gears, Mon, let's talk about the 2026 Philippine Investment Mission. You've already had different missions across Vietnam, Thailand, China, and South Korea, and now the Philippine delegation is headed to Australia.
Yes!
But first, what kind of interest are you seeing from foreign investors when it comes to the Philippines?
Honestly, because we are at the heart or center of the ASEAN region with the 600 million population, it's really attractive for foreign investors to look at the Philippines. But you know, it's surprising when I was in China last month that the political issue don't matter to them that much. They didn't ask about the impeachment. They didn't ask about Duterte. Their first question was the economic policy. will it change if there will be election? How stable it is, or should we be worried that you will have election in 2028? Because investors don't look at the headlines alone. They don't invest for 1 to 2 years, unlike most of our politicians. Investors invest for 10 to 30 years. So they look at the economic fundamentals, and that's where we are strong. We are very strong in terms of fundamentals. These political noises are temporary. It doesn't change the landscape. It doesn't change the policies. While we can change laws, but it doesn't retroact.
Okay.
So the moment you get incentives now, no president can change it. Moving forward, yes. But if you avail it under the BBM administration, you get it until the end of the contract. So you're protected.
So even with all the political instability, I mean, just this past
Yeah.
week, I mean, we witnessed a lot of major events, a series of unfortunate events from the leadership shakeup at the Senate to that shooting incident. Doesn't affect investor confidence?
Surprisingly, a lot of them are messaging me, and I'm just saying, well, please be entertained while we try to continue fixing our policies. Because this is not a surprise, but they are more after the reforms. Are the reforms ongoing, moving? Rather than the change in Senate leadership. They ask about the global minimum tax. Will you be adopting it? Then I replied to 2, 3 investors in the US and UK. Yes, the Department of Finance already committed that they will prioritize it this year. Those are more important to them than the headlines. And we're not blaming the media because it's really the news.
Yeah.
But our mission is now becomes more important because we can talk to them one by one in a private conversation to tell them that, yeah, this is the news, this is really what's happening politically, like in the US, I mean, across the world. It's not like it's isolated case in the Philippines. But at the moment they hear about the reform agenda, the economic policies that we are working on, the improvement in ease of doing business, they get excited. The next question is, who can you help us? Of course, the Department of Trade and Industry, the Board of Investment, the Philippine Economic Zone and Authority, which go with us in our missions. We are all here to help, and that's what matters most for them.
Exactly. Things that actually matter are the priority. But Mon, you've described the Philippines as an investment-ready economy, and the mission here highlights opportunities in infrastructure, technology, renewable energy, and of course tourism. But which sectors are generating the most interest so far from investors?
Well, honestly, the renewable energy is getting much traction, mainly because of the global oil crisis. And let's face it, given all the minerals that we have here, we also attract the mining sector. But at the same time, the Philippines has so much potential because we haven't really transformed or converted our lifestyle and operations governance into renewable energy. The government has not invested much on renewable energy, and I think that's seen as opportunities for a lot of investors. And we tell them that, with the 7,641 islands, there's so much natural resources opportunities in the Philippines, but we need investments. The same with tourism. We need infrastructure, we need more hotels, but we need investors. And that's what we're telling them. Come visit the Philippines, see for yourself. Experience it, and you will realize how much opportunities are waiting for you.
Well, Australia is the next stop for the investment mission. What kind of opportunities are you hoping to unlock when it comes to Australian investors?
Well, we have long years of partnership with Australia, and we believe that Australia will really be a good partner for our BPOs primarily. In fact, the IBPOP will be with us in the mission in Sydney and Melbourne. So there's so much on technology, there's so much also on renewable energy, but there's also so much to learn from Perth, Australia, which is really the capital now of mining technology, meaning they have really developed expertise on mining, and that's something that the Philippines should learn. Sustainable mining, not just mining. So I think it's both ways. We learn from them while encouraging them to look at the Philippines and hopefully invest in the Philippines. That's why the Why Invest in the Philippines is a critical guide, because this is not just a book, but it's a handbook that can be their reference and endorsed by our government, that they can really refer to it either on tax issues, any policies, but at the same time, access to different government agencies. Because I think that's what's important. How do we strengthen that relationship? That regardless of what's on the headline, if they have questions, who do they call? Who can they contact to? Who can they ask for help?
All right, Juan. Well, I hope your mission in Australia will be successful and you get to come home with a lot of investments.
I'll be back to share with you the good news.
Yes, please come back on the program.
Before we go to UK, Canada, US, and the rest of the Europe.
All right. Well, please do come back. We're going to count you on that. But for now, thank you very much for sharing your insights with us. That was Mon Abrea, Chief Tax Advisor of Asian Consulting Group. Now, you're watching Money Talks. Coming up, U.S. President Donald Trump meets with Chinese President Xi Jinping. And in entertainment news, check out which movies are showing in local cinemas this month. Keep it here on One News. Welcome back to Money Talks. I'm Pauline Berzosa. Senator Bato de la Rosa allegedly left the Senate before dawn Thursday after taking refuge there earlier this week following a failed attempt by NBI agents to serve an ICC arrest warrant against him. De la Rosa was reportedly seen leaving the Senate complex at around 2:30 a.m. That's hours after gunshots inside the compound caused panic among staff and members of the media. Senate President Alan Peter Cayetano, quoting the Office of the Sergeant-at-Arms, said De La Rosa left with Senator Robin Padilla.
He's no longer in the building. Senator Bato, together with Senator Padilla, had left the Senate premises. Upon receiving the report, the Sergeant-at-Arms with Sec Mendoza proceeded to verify the information.
Now, this development came after the Supreme Court ordered all parties to comment on De La Rosa's petition seeking a temporary restraining order against his possible arrest under the ICC warrant. However, the High Court has yet to issue a TRO. Cayetano maintained there was no obstruction of justice, saying no warrant had been formally served inside the Senate. Meanwhile, Senate Sergeant-at-Arms Mau Aplasca said De La Rosa spoke with PNP Chief Melencio Nartates Jr. about a possible police custody. But according to Aplasca, Nartates made no commitment. Immigration records, meanwhile, show no indication that the senator has left the country.
Si Senator Bato po, magbiro, di ba, kilala natin lahat, but the way I sense it, parang merong serious na pagsasabi at merong kasamang pag-alala sa kanyang seguridad.
General, paano pagkakasabi niya? Paano yung pagkakadeliver niya nung inalok niya?
Hindi ko lang ano yung exact word, pero sabi niya, gusto mo, Chief, doon na lang ako magpa-custody sa PNP.
Now, two of the world's most powerful men are wrapping up their summit in China, papering over differences on Iran, Taiwan, and more. U.S. President Donald Trump has embarked on his second state visit to China, meeting with President Xi Jinping for a series of bilateral talks. Trump says Xi had, quote, congratulated me on so many tremendous successes. Both leaders agree that the Strait of Hormuz should remain open. Trump says Xi has privately offered assistance in resolving the Middle East conflict, though it is unclear what he meant given China's strategic partnership with Iran. For his part, Xi has warned Trump that their countries could clash if the issue of Taiwan is not handled properly. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio clarifies that U.S. policy towards Taiwan is unchanged, saying it would be a terrible mistake if Beijing takes the island by force. Despite these differences, Trump hails the relationship between the U.S. and China.
This bond of commerce and respect that stretches back 250 years is the foundation for a future that benefits both of our nations. Together we have the chance to draw on these values to create a future of greater prosperity, cooperation, and happiness and peace for our children. This region and the world is a special world with the two of us united and together.
Global oil prices edge up with benchmark Brent crude and West Texas Intermediate both rising 0.7%. And now checking in on the markets, U.S. stock futures are slightly down as investors keep an eye on the Trump-Xi summit. The Dow falls 0.2% and the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq both down 0.1%. Asian markets are a mixed bag this Friday, with Australia's ASX 200 advancing nearly 0.33%, while Japan's Nikkei 225 falling 0.33%, and South Korea's Kospi sliding 0.1%. Investor enthusiasm for AI companies and AI chips led the Dow to close above 50,000 for the first time in 3 months. The S&P reached 7,500 for the first time ever. The Nasdaq was up 0.8%. And now let's take a look at our own markets on this final trading day of the week. The PSEI opens this Friday slightly higher by less than 0.1% at 6,020.10. The stock market returned to the 6,000 level yesterday, up 1.1% on the back of bargain hunting activities. The broader all-shares index jumped nearly 1%, with local counters all in the green except for financial. Now on to corporate news. PLDT's first quarter attributable net income slipped nearly 2% to 8.87 billion pesos as higher costs offset revenue growth. The telco says revenues rose to 56.5 billion pesos, while capex for the year is set in the mid-50 billion peso range as it focuses on efficiency and network optimization. Meralco and Sual Power are seeking ERC approval for a 4-year 200-megawatt supply deal. And the companies say the agreement could lower Meralco's average blended generation rate and generate around 631 million pesos in consumer savings. And the Lopez family majority is withdrawing its earlier move to remove Federico Piqui Lopez as president and CEO of Lopez Incorporated. The group says the decision opens the door for talks and a possible ceasefire amid the family dispute over major deals involving the Lopez Group. All right, and before we go, if you're up for a scare, well, here are a couple of movies to catch later this month. First is Obsession, showing in cinemas on May 27th. The film follows a hopeless romantic who breaks a mysterious one-wish willow to win over his crush. But after getting exactly what he wanted, he soon learns that some wishes come with a dark and deadly price.
Nikki? I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you!
Also arriving May 27th is Passenger. After witnessing a brutal highway accident, a young couple realizes they did not leave the crash site alone. A demonic entity known as the Passenger follows them, turning their van life road trip into a nightmare. And that's it for Money Talk. Sitting in for Cathy Yang, I'm Pauline Verzosa. Catch us again on Monday at 9:30 a.m. Kapatid, we are One News. All sides, all the time. Have a great weekend.